I think anyone with kids can appreciate that. If it's your kid who's picked up by police, they're gonna be put in this coercive environment where they're being interrogated. That could have a obviously huge consequence for the rest of their life.
You're gonna be going to jail.
Where? Hey, excuse me.
Well, one, you wanna know about it so you can get there and make sure their rights are protected. And you want somebody to be in the room with them to make sure they don't say something dumb, something that might not even be true.
Can I talk to my mom, man?
Your mom's out of home. You're a man, you gotta take responsibility.
Man.
I think any parent would want to make sure their kid is protected against that. So we recently developed a new policy on youth interrogation here at the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. It does a few things. One, it says before any person under 18 is going to be interrogated by police, they have to have a chance to consult with an attorney. That's their constitutional right. We want to make sure they have that opportunity before moving forward. We know that young people waive that right at extremely high rates, upwards of 90%, suggesting they don't really understand the rights that they're waiving away. So second, for youth who are interrogated by police, we want to make sure that the police are avoiding certain techniques that sometimes are used with adults, but can be really coercive and problematic when used with young suspects and can result both in false confessions, which can lead to wrongful convictions, as well as just bad information. And lastly, we want to get this police interrogation activity out of schools to the extent possible. If there's an ongoing crime where someone is in harm's way as we speak, we want to make sure the police has a chance to talk to that suspect right away to make sure they can get out there, stop that crime. The rule is really focused on when we're investigating something that's completed, it happened in the past, we want to make sure that we take the time to make sure someone has a chance to consult with an attorney. My name is Andrew Marquardt, and I lead our Conviction Integrity Unit here at the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. So we are aware of many dozens of cases around the country. People under 18 were interrogated and confessed to crimes that they later were proved not to have committed.
Central Park 5 case. 5 teens, 4 black and 1 Latino, wrongly convicted of raping a woman in Central Park in 1989. The head of the Manhattan DA's sex crimes unit when the boys were convicted. She was accused of playing a key role in coercing the false confessions that led to their conviction. The boys spent between 6 and 13 years in prison before their convictions were vacated after someone else confessed to the crime.
False confessions is a problem that can occur in any kind of case, but youthful defendants are wildly overrepresented in cases involving false confessions.
The vast majority of adults waive their Miranda rights as well, but the waiver rates among young people are even higher. In its very basest form, right, young people can misunderstand the literal words and phrases in the Miranda warnings. Words like indigent or even attorney or even the word right? There's some early research from the 80s. Many of them conceptualize right as more like a privilege, right? Something that adults can give to you but then can be taken away, which is fundamentally contradictory to what a right is.
So the most famous that many people will be familiar with is, of course, the Central Park 5 case out of New York City, 1989. You had several defendants, all 16 years old or younger.
After hours of interrogation, they confessed but later retracted their statements, saying they were coerced. They pled not guilty but were ultimately convicted and served several years in prison.
None of those people had an attorney in the room with them. All of those interrogations involved problematic techniques that our policy is really intended to guard against.
The changes that the adolescent brain is experiencing can create specific vulnerabilities that are particularly problematic in interrogation. We know that compared to adults, young people exhibit greater levels of suggestibility, acquiesce to leading questions. Some research shows that they're actually more likely to shift their answers or to change their statements in response to some kind of negative feedback.
There's also a really high risk when you put a young person in an interrogation room when they're subjected to the kinds of techniques that were designed for adults.
The Central Park 5 made waves in the law enforcement community and caused many to rethink the way the criminal justice system treats teens and minorities.
You can get bad information, even if they're guilty, you can get bad information from them because they're just trying to tell you what they think you want to hear. You can send your investigation in a totally wrong direction. And God forbid, you get a false confession.
I've had the opportunity to watch some interrogations where I saw a youthful person clearly in a vulnerable state, clearly providing information just so they could get out of that room. I've also had the opportunity to interact with people that at a youthful age falsely confessed to a crime, which has impacted potentially the rest of their life, some of which have been wrongfully convicted based off of that false confession. And those people are the ones that have helped me kind of drive this passion and educate investigators on why it's so important that we change.
And if someone is confessing to a crime they didn't commit and that sends the case in a wrong direction, that doesn't promote public safety. That doesn't promote justice for the victim. In many cases, what that means is we didn't get the right guy. Victims haven't been served. Society has not been served. There's no justice. It doesn't promote public safety. So you can get better results while avoiding the downside risk of false confessions. That promotes better outcomes. That's better for everybody.
The most progressive and successful investigators out there, they can walk into a room with somebody who may have committed a terrible crime, but they can still show them respect, they can still empathize, and they can have a productive conversation versus the ability to walk in with authority and get somebody to crack under pressure. That's not really a strong interviewer. That's just an authoritative bullying mindset.
We're following in the footsteps of a number of jurisdictions who've implemented reforms successfully, including the non-waivable right to counsel that is part of our policy. A number of states now have made that into law, including California, Washington State, Maryland. All of us who are working within the criminal justice system have an interest in promoting public confidence of our practices, and this policy does just that. But this policy also is going to promote better outcomes, which is good for police, it's good for prosecutors, it's good for everybody.